it a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Daniel Starkand. The Dodgers beat the Rockies 5-4. It's their sixth straight win against the Rockies. Just a pretty run-of-the-mill game there for a while, Daniel. But then at the end, my guy, I'll own it, my guy, Craig Kimbrell, making it a little more interesting. But headline, Dodgers win.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start by saying, maybe get some of those runners home when you got guys on base every inning. And then, that way we're not sweating it out to the very end with Kimbrell. But yeah, I mean, like you said, pretty pedestrian game, a lot of action in the beginning, then not much for a while, and then some action at the end there. But hey, they hung on, they won. Obviously, haven't had a ton of success in Colorado this season, so it's good to see the last 2 days. The bats get going, and the pitching staff's been great outside of that last inning.
Yeah, and I think there was a stat that the Dodgers opened the season 1-4 against the Rockies. As I said, they've now won 6 in a row. So this is a team that historically it feels like the Dodgers have struggled against. In Colorado, they have struggled, and yet they go ahead and win this one. You mentioned the runners left in scoring position. They go 1-for-12 tonight with runners in scoring position. They leave 13 men on base. We're going to get into it. They had the bases loaded with nobody outs and then scored 1 run. The very next inning, they had a triple to lead off an inning and didn't convert that run. They left guys on second base, I believe, in the 2 innings after that. And so they did just enough. That's the key here. They get the win, so it's going to be a positive show, all right? It's not going to be a negative show. But a lot going on. Let's get to a brief recap of how we got here. We'll get into it a little more detail as we go. But top of the first, things start off the way you want them to start off. That feels like the way the Dodgers have been starting off. Will Smith, 2-run home run. This is a guy who came in on a 1-for-25 streak into this series. He now has multiple hits in back-to-back games, leads all catchers in home runs. In the second inning, they add on Trayce Thompson, who we're going to talk a little bit about. He adds a 2-run home run. They get a sac fly in the third after Urias gives up 2 in the second, and it was 5-2 at the end of, through 2.5 innings, and it stayed that way all the way until the 9th inning when Craig Kimbrell comes in and struggles. Let's talk first, though, about Julio Urias, because I think that's one of the big storylines tonight. 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts for Julio. Yes, the 2 earned runs, but it felt more like sequencing there. He was able to induce soft contact, had great control of his stuff, only 4 base runners in 7 strong innings. What did you see out of Julio tonight, Daniel?
Yeah, I thought he was great. I mean, he's struggled at Coors Field in his career. I forgot who tweeted it, but I think he came into this game with like a 5.91 ERA at Coors Field.
5.81.
5.81. There we go. It's pretty close. So that's obviously a place he doesn't like pitching, but I thought he was great all night. I thought he was commanding the zone really well. No walks. He does give up the 2 runs both in whatever the second or third inning, whatever it was. But no harm, no foul. You don't expect, necessarily to put up zeros at Coors Field, but he was efficient. He was pounding the zone, kept the pitch count down, 89 pitches in 7 innings. That's about as much as you could ask for. So really good start for him. He's been super underrated all year. It feels like he's kind of the guy that gets left out when everyone's talking about this rotation, even though he's arguably, been one of the best. I mean, they've all been great, so it's hard to say, that he's been the very best, but he's been right there all year, super consistent, giving, 6-7 innings every start. So it's been great to see, and it's good to see him, have a good start at Coors Field.
Yeah, I guess I had forgotten how bad he had been. You mentioned it. 5.81 ERA at Coors in his career. That's 2 relief appearances and 9 starts. A 2.87 batting average against in his career in Coors, that feels even worse than a 5.81 ERA. Guys are hitting almost 300 against him. And yet he comes into this one, as I said, just 4 base runners through 7 innings, 89 pitches, as you said, efficient. His ERA down to 2.71. I joked it's the 12th best ERA in baseball. It's the 6th best ERA in the National League, and it's the 4th best ERA in the Dodgers rotation if you count Kershaw, who doesn't technically qualify for those first 2 categories. But, you joke about how he's sort of the forgotten guy. I know that he has not been forgotten on this side of the camera. Julio's my guy. He's the guy I've long advocated for as the ace or an ace, deserving of number 1 status. And here he is again. I mean, you said it. 2.71 ERA, and yet nobody's talking about him. Nobody's paying attention. I know some of the metrics underneath aren't perfect, But one of the things, and we had an article up on DodgerBlue.com, was the velocity. He felt like he had a bullpen the other day. They were talking about incorporating his legs. He felt like he could get a little more velocity. The average fastball coming in was 93 miles an hour. He threw the fourth fastest pitch of the season, 95.5 miles an hour. Tonight, he had 7 pitches above 94.6 miles an hour. And so the velocity's starting to tick up for Julio. And if he has the accuracy and the precision he has had and can throw can throw the fastball with a little bit of the old Julio velocity, that's a great sign for the Dodgers moving forward.
Yeah, and I also think it's good that not only was he throwing that hard, but he pretty much sustained it throughout. Like he was in the 6th, 7th inning still throwing 94 out there. So that was great to see. He's a guy who we talk about workload a lot with him, and I wouldn't say they've necessarily managed his workload this year. I think some of that will be to come, but his arm's obviously feeling good if his velocity is, basically as high as it's been all year. So that's, obviously a positive thing to see.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it is fair to say he's managed his workload. How many starts do you think Julio has this season over 100 pitches, if you had to guess?
Maybe 1.
0 starts over 100 pitches. So, 89 pitches tonight. He had 91 in each of his last 2 starts, 99 back on July 4th. That was the most against Colorado. Another gem, 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned there. 94, 90, 91. I mean, so a lot of these games are in the 70s and 80s, only a handful even above 90. And so, yes, we know he racked up the innings last year, set a career high, blew past it, and he's in the prime. I always like to remind myself just how old this guy is, or excuse me, I should say how young this guy is. He's 25, about to turn 26. So it's not a guy that you have to be worried about, where he stands on. He can handle this. He's a young guy who's done it before, and so it's just nice to see. And the other piece worth noting, the 7 innings, back-to-back 7-inning outings for the Dodgers, and really last night was pretty much 8 innings because Hanser Alberto comes in and gets an inning out of relief. So only 3 innings needed from the Dodgers bullpen in 2 games, which in Coors Field is absolutely insane. And in a stretch where you have 18 games in 18 days, that's got to make Dave Roberts feel a lot better about how the next few days are starting to look.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could ask for any more out of your pitching staff so far in this series. You mentioned, the bullpen's only had to throw 3 innings or whatever, and that's just because the starters have been efficient. They've been pounding the strike zone. If you look, not getting a ton of strikeouts, like a lot of guys putting the ball in play, but a lot of soft contact, not walking guys, and that's a recipe for success. And like you said, in a stretch with 18 games in a row, we're sitting here at the end of July, like we're 100 games in here. That's, no small amount. So you want to try to keep guys as fresh as possible. So anytime you could get your pen time off, like you go to Coors Field usually with an extra reliever, especially in a 4-game series, thinking like we're going to need everybody. And here you are 2 games through, you've only needed 3 innings out of your bullpen. That's awesome.
Yeah, Mitch White optioned to make room for an extra relief pitcher, Jake Reed, who pitched yesterday. So, I mean, you're talking about Phillips and Kimbrell tonight, Jake Reed yesterday. I mean, we're talking about a lot of guys that haven't pitched in a number of days. So Dodgers are in a good spot. I see a lot of comments in there about the Luis Castillo trade. We are going to get to that. I see a lot of comments there about Craig Kimbrell. We're going to get to that. Let's stay with the positives, though, here for a moment and talk about my guy, the janitor, first inning, Will Smith, 2-run homer, absolutely mashes an inside fastball into left field. Again, I said it earlier, he now leads all catchers in home runs. This is a guy I was starting to get worried about. 1 for 25 coming out of the All-Star break, but he comes to Colorado, seems to have found himself. 2 hits last night, 2 more hits tonight. He also walks and takes a hit by pitch, so he reaches on 4 of his 5 plate appearances tonight. And look, I joke about how everyone talks about the top 3 with Freddie Freeman and Trey Turner and Mookie Betts in some order. And I've long been like, hey, can we call it a top 4? Because Will Smith is one of the best offensive players in baseball. And really, if Gavin Lux is going to bat 5th and be 4th in Major League Baseball, then maybe it's a top 5. He wasn't batting 5th tonight, but nice to see Will Smith with a couple of nice games. We knew he would figure it out, but this is a guy, Daniel, that in my estimation, we know how good the top 3 are. He is integral to what they do offensively because of where he sits in the lineup and needing a guy to clean up the bases with those 3 guys in front of him.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, he was struggling a little bit since the All-Star break coming in, so it's good to see him, get a hold of one, and he got all of that one. I think it was like 435 or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I saw the numbers and it was like, yeah, he has been struggling since the All-Star break, but you don't really notice it as much with him. I don't know, like I feel like he's always taking good at bats. I just feel like whenever he's struggling, it's mostly just because he's getting unlucky and like hitting balls hard right at guys. Like he's not necessarily struggling the way you'd see like a Chris Taylor struggle or a Cody Bellinger struggle where they're just whiffing at everything. But I don't, maybe that's just me, but I don't know. It's good. It was good to see him hit a homer. I'm with you. I mean, he's obviously, really important to this offense. He's batting cleanup behind the big three, as they like to call him. We'll see. Maybe the Dodgers add another guy before the deadline to kind of slide into that top four, and he moves down to fifth. But if not, he's been great in that cleanup spot.
Yeah, okay. Well, John Morosi tweet here that we're going to have to get to in a little bit. John Morosi just tweeted 5 minutes ago, a Shohei Ohtani trade is viewed as unlikely. Sources say the Dodgers have tried to engage the Angels regarding the possibility of acquiring the superstar. Many in the industry are skeptical that Ohtani would be dealt to the Angels' geographic rival. So, John, thank you so much. You and Craig Kimbrell providing us some extra content tonight. Let's get through the game first, and then we'll get to some of these guys. The other guy I want to mention real quick is Trayce Thompson. And we had some people mention it. I was skeptical. He had went into the All-Star break struggling, and I was like, all right, we're getting back to reality with Trayce Thompson, and he just keeps doing it. I believe he has 2 more hits tonight, 2 for 5, batting out of the 9-hole. Of course, one of those is the home run. The guy just keeps on hitting. Dodgers Insider had this tweet. Since Trayce Thompson's first game with the Dodgers on June 21st, he's driven in 17 runs. That's 5th most among National League outfielders since that time. I like this one from Josh Thomas. Trayce Thompson's Fangraphs WAR with the Dodgers is 1.1. That would lead the Tigers, the club that sent him to LA for cash considerations. And I even added, you forget with some of these guys and how long they feel like they've been around. If Trayce Thompson can maintain not a 300 average, all right, but if he can maintain a 240 average with some competent defense, which, closed out the game there at the end, and just the ability to hit for some power, this is a guy who is not a free agent until 4 years. He's got 3 more years of team control after this one. He has no options, so it's sort of the Evan Phillips situation where he'd have to stay on the big league club. But I don't know. Every day that goes by and he keeps on hitting, I know we're still not dealing with the biggest sample size in the world, but you and I had a video that went up today. What do they do with Chris Taylor when he comes back? Trayce Thompson's going yard off of righties. You can't take him out of the lineup.
Yeah. It's getting to the point where I strongly considered picking him up in our fantasy baseball league. Like he's been swinging the bat really well. I think he's had like 5 multi-hit games in his last like 10 games or something. So you're right. I mean, you can't take him out of the lineup at this point. He's also playing, the best defense out of that group, I'd say, in left field. Like when you consider the other options out there, like he makes that catch to end the game there. That was a great catch. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, we don't know how long this is going to last. Like, obviously, there's not a huge track record there, but I will say he was at least having a good season in AAA. Like, he had like 18 homers or something in AAA. Yeah. So he's clearly locked in right now. I mean, with AAA stats, you never know how that's going to convert to the big leagues, but he's been able to do it, even though he hasn't necessarily been consistently in the lineup every day. I think his playing time has kind of increased over the last week or two as he continues, to swing the bat really well. But yeah, it's been a really, pleasant surprise. And I think when you look at the emergence of him and Jake Lamb, there's not as big of a need for a hitter at the deadline. Obviously, Soto is a completely, he's in a tier of his own. But outside of Soto, is anyone else that you'd be bringing in going to be better than what Trayce has been doing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the question here is a good one. How much of his success is because he's just comfortable being back in LA? I think a lot of it. I think, the fact that he's back in an organization he's comfortable with, there's a lot less pressure. He's batting towards the end of the lineup, and he had a little bit of success and feels good about it. So good for him there. Hey, we got to give our guy Sean Davis a shout out. Giving us a super comment here, $4.99. Just wanted to show my support for you guys. Let's try to get Ohtani or Soto. So shout out to Sean Davis. We appreciate you.
He took a break from the Twitter Spaces to come check out our show. I appreciate it, Sean.
Sean's our guy, Lakers Nation friend of the show. So thank you, Sean. We appreciate it. And yeah, we're going to get into the Ohtani and Soto talk here in just a moment. There's plenty of it. And actually, Daniel, myself, and Matt Moreno recorded a full-length video that's going to be coming out tomorrow where we debate, would you rather have Soto or Ohtani? So we're going to get into that. But first, let's just finish real quick, because there was one big storyline from the game that you and I have mentioned briefly, which is the inability to hit with runners in scoring position. They go 1 for 12 tonight. They leave 13 guys on base, and it started in the third. They add the 5th run when Gavin Lux has a sac fly, but they had the bases loaded with nobody outs. Gavin Lux sac fly. Then you had a Bellinger strikeout and a Trayce Thompson strikeout, so they get just 1 run there. In the fourth, Mookie Betts, leadoff triple. Trey and Freddie can't get the ball out of the infield. After a walk and a hit by pitch, Gavin Lux grounds out, can't convert there. Top of the fifth, they put 2 on, they strand both. Top of the sixth, 2-out double for Jake Lamb. Gavin Lux once again grounding out. Top of the seventh, leadoff single, goes to second on a wild pitch, another scoring position runner with nobody out, and yet once again they can't do it. So you've got the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, all innings in which the Dodgers leave runners in scoring position, and it doesn't matter tonight. They end up winning, but is this, I mean, they're winning, right? Is that the headline here? Like, should we freak out about this? Or is it, you know what? They hit 2 home runs earlier in the game, so they won. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustrating, especially at a game at Coors Field where, no lead is safe. Like, usually you say, like, oh, we got 5 runs. Julio's throwing the ball well. That's an easy win. But Coors Field is a completely different story. So every run you can score at Coors Field is a good thing. With that being said, though, I'm not going to get overly concerned about it. Like, I think every team's going to have those nights every now and then. I think for the most part, the Dodgers have been pretty good with runners on base and runners in scoring position. They just put up 12, 13 runs, whatever it was yesterday. They've been rolling. They're winning just about every night. So if you want to get mad at that, fine. Like, to me, that just seems like you're looking for things to get mad at for a team that is just kind of cruising right now. But it's definitely frustrating as it's happening, just because we've seen so many games at Coors Field where no lead is safe. So when you get a guy like when Mookie hits a leadoff triple, you expect that run to score with the guys batting behind them. So it's frustrating in that regard, but I don't think it's need to overreact and actually get mad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of overreaction, let's go to the place where I think it's fair. Maybe it is not an overreaction. That's my guy, Craig Kimbrell. So the Dodgers take a 5-2 lead into the ninth after Evan Phillips has a perfect 8th inning after Julio comes out after 7. Craig Kimbrell comes into the game, gets a ground out to start, gives up a single, gets a strikeout. So you're thinking, all right, runner on, 2 outs. No big deal here with the 3-run lead. Single, walk, single, and all of a sudden we've got the bases. All of a sudden it's 5-4 with the tying run on second base. He ends up getting out of it. I'll admit, as a guy who has defended Kimbrell, this felt like one of those games where I don't know if I don't know. Is this have we crossed the threshold? Did he have to blow this one to lose his job? Or are we nearing the point in which Dave Roberts says, and I'll be watching the post-game quotes tonight, but are we nearing the point in which Craig Kimbrell's not the closer anymore?
I mean, I'll save you some time. You don't need to watch the post-game quotes because I could almost guarantee you Dave Roberts is going to say that Craig's our closer. He's fine. I mean, right now there's not like a ton of options. Like Evan Phillips pitches the 8th. Like if you want to make him the 9th inning guy, fine. But then you need someone to pitch the 8th. Yeah. I mean, Yency Almonte was warming up. He's the other quality option. But after that, until like Trinan and maybe a Tommy Kahnle. And who knows with some of the starters that are coming back, a Dustin May perhaps, those are all guys who could, in theory, take over that closer's role. But I wouldn't expect any big changes right now. I will say, though, we've been sitting here all year saying, he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. If you look, underneath the hood, there's some good metrics there. He's getting a ton of swing and misses. He just needs to cut down on the walks, et cetera, et cetera. There's only so long that we could keep saying that. Like we're sitting here, we're 100 games in now. It's July 29th. Like at the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, he didn't have a spring training. They're building him up. He's pitching once a week. He's not throwing consistently. But now, I mean, he's been pitching pretty consistently. Like I think him and Dave Roberts came to an agreement that he won't sit out more than like 3 straight games or whatever. So he's pitching. It's in the middle of the season. Like he's not still building up at this point. So at a certain point, from a closer, you're going to need to see results. Yeah. But I mean, the division lead is so big that there's not really cause for drastic changes right now. Like even in spite of Craig Kimbrell, you're still winning basically every game. As bad as he's been, I think he only has like 3 blown saves. So it's like I think giving up 2 runs in a game when you're winning by 3 and giving up 2 runs in a game when you're winning by 1 are 2 completely different things, obviously. But yeah, I mean, he needs to be better if we're going to have any sort of trust in him going into October.
He did have 6 consecutive scoreless outings coming into this one. Obviously, This one wasn't that great. That over those 6, he had just 4 hits allowed and 1 walk, so was allowing less than a base runner per inning. 2 of those opportunities were saves. One ended up being a victory. And so, 3 of those were saves, and 1 of those was a win. So, those are the moments where it feels like something is changing. Tonight, it just didn't look like the breaking ball was there. I mean, the fastball was what it was, but you could tell he was either hanging every breaking ball, it wasn't nearly as sharp as he wanted it to be, or it was just getting buried in the dirt and was an sort of hittable pitch. Not even, guys weren't even swinging at it. And so we'll see. One other thing I just want to note on this one. Yency Almonte didn't start warming up until the bases were loaded. Like, what are we doing now? Because you could see they cut to Dave Roberts and he turns and looks at Pryor and says, or Yency, I think is what he said. Yency. I'm like, now? Like, with the bases loaded, that's when we start warming it up? Like, 6 batters into what looks like it's a train wreck? Like, as soon as they had 2 guys on with 2 outs, he should have been warming up. Definitely after the walk to load the bases. So, excuse me, I don't think he didn't actually start warming up until both runs had scored. I believe. Someone could correct me on that one. But I believe Roberts calling for Almonte was right before the last batter of the game, which Trayce Thompson bails him out. And so even if Kimbrell is going to be your closer, like, the leash has got to be a lot shorter. Like, I think we can all agree, regardless of what Roberts is going to say or not say, can we at least make the leash shorter here?
Yeah. And I mean, there's no harm in warming a guy up,
Yeah.
Like, you definitely want to have that just
He didn't pitch last night.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where, one swing away from tying it or even the Rockies winning it, and then there's no reason for Almonte to be even warming up at that point. So, yeah, you should have him up pretty much as soon as a guy gets on base, I'd say, like, given Kimbrell's track record. Like, I think if he was a dominant closer, it'd be a different story. You have a little more trust there, but I don't think Kimbrell has earned that right yet. So I definitely agree. There's no harm in getting a guy warmed up. And then if you see it gets to a point where you need to make the change, then you can make the change. But if he's not warm, you can't make that change.
Yeah, exactly. I've never understood why it was like this huge insult to have a guy warming up when your closer's in the game. First of all, the closer's likely not going to notice. I doubt he's looking back at the bullpen to see if there's a guy in there. Most stadiums you probably couldn't even see if you wanted to. And so why not just give yourself the opportunity rather than having Kimbrell face McMahon in that last batter there. So, all right, let's get to player of the game. Then we'll jump into Luis Castillo, Shohei Ohtani stuff there. I think some pretty good options tonight for player of the game. A lot of the times we do this and it's like, well, obviously it's this guy. Just looking through the box score really briefly, obviously Julio, 7 innings, strong innings, 4 base runners as a candidate. Will Smith, as I mentioned, 2 for 3 with a walk and a hit by pitch as well, including the home run. Trayce Thompson, 2 for 5, including the great catch at the end. Jake Lamb also had 2 hits. Mookie Betts reaches 3 out of 5 at bats. Evan Phillips, a perfect one. I'm not sure a perfect 8th inning qualifies you for player of the game on a night like tonight, but who are you going with for your player of the game?
I think there's 2 guys that are kind of above everyone else. It's Julio for the way he pitched, 7 strong innings, and then Trayce Thompson hits the home run, makes the catch to end it. Those are the 2 guys for me. You could have your guy.
My guy, Bill gets nothing.
The janitor.
He's cleaning up, Daniel. He's cleaning up. He reaches 4 out of 5 at bats. He doesn't even crack the top 2 for Daniel over here for player of the game.
He's 3rd place.
Yeah. All right, fine. I'm not gonna. Trayce Thompson, nice catch at the end. I'll give you that one there. Let's see. THP's got Will Smith for the home run and having to catch Craig Kimbrell's train wreck. He gets some bonus points there for having to sweat that one out. Laura says Urias, player of the game. I mean, it felt unfair for him to give up 2 runs. Obviously, it's a double and a triple, and so it's like, and it's a sac fly. So it was kind of like, yeah, you probably kind of got what you deserved there. But just 4 base runners in 7 innings. Just some bad luck there in the sequencing there. We've also got Julio. Ice Cream makes a great point. Obviously pitching in Colorado, maybe you get some bonus points there. I think that's a fair point. If you're deciding between a pitcher who pitched great and a hitter who got a home run, maybe the pitcher gets the tiebreaker there just because of Coors Field and the altitude. One other thing I meant to ask you about, just quickly about Will Smith. Did you hear this Joe Davis story about him golfing today?
No, I missed it.
So they were talking about how Will Smith likes to golf. This is right before his home run. And they say, they were asking about it. And he's like, yeah, well, they said the ball travels a lot farther here. And Joe Davis goes, yeah, he said he was hitting the ball about 400 yards. Like, geez
Makes
Louise.
sense,
And you
yeah.
look at him and you're like, that makes sense. The guy's
Yeah.
probably just absolutely roping it. So there you go. Will Smith, Julio Urias, sort of take your pick there. I don't think, let me just double check. No Craig Kimbrell votes for player of the game. He did get the save. I don't know what people are so mad about.
You
Daniel.
don't want to give it to him?
No, I mean, he got the save. Like, I think, we get some bonus points for Coors Field and gets the job done.
That'll help his Hall of Fame resume, huh?
There we go. Just add a save there. Add a save. All right, let's get to the stories that I think are especially interesting outside of this game. Luis Castillo, I think, is the most important one. Luis Castillo traded to the Mariners. This is a guy that many people had connected to the Dodgers at various points. He was the best starting pitcher on the market, I would say, by quite a big margin, given Frankie Montas' injury concerns. And the Mariners, to their credit, they went out and got him. I liked your text message to me. He didn't go to the National League. He didn't go to the Yankees. He didn't go to the Astros. Those are all good things.
Yep.
Mariners had to cough up. I mean, MLB Pipeline, depending on where you want to go look for your prospects, they gave up basically, I think it was a guy who was like the 18th best prospect and the 93rd best prospect. Some people were telling me that's an old list. Maybe these guys would have been higher. But we're talking about 2 top 100 prospects and then another couple, middling level prospects, I would say, in what's a pretty good farm system in Seattle. I made the comparison. The best prospect they gave up was 6 spots behind Diego Cartaya. And then the second guy they gave up, was just inside the top 100. Gavin Stone, probably the Dodgers' best prospect outside of that top 100 list. And so Cartaya and Stone plus a couple lower level guys is sort of the package. That's a pretty steep price, but for a guy who's got some team control and a team in the Mariners who has kind of an exciting group of players, having some success, haven't really made the playoffs in what feels like forever. Good for the Mariners, Northwest guy, so I'll root for the Pacific Northwest. I don't have an AL team, but I got a lot of friends that are Mariners fans, so excited for them. But what did the Dodgers do? Are you disappointed that Luis Castillo didn't make his way to the Dodgers? Where did you stand when this news came down?
No, I mean, whatever the opposite of disappointed is, that's where I landed. I mean, me and you both have pretty much been in agreement for the past couple of weeks that starting pitching wasn't a huge need for this team. In fact, probably the least of their needs. Like I'd say a bat, or I'd put bullpen above bat, but I'd say a reliever and then a bat, in my opinion. Not that this team really has any needs, but you could always add, a reliever, especially with the way some of the guys have looked. But I didn't think the Dodgers really needed a starter. And then when you see the package, like you said, they're giving up their top prospect and a couple guys who weren't nobodies. That to me, I didn't think the Dodgers needed to overpay to add a Castillo. I think if you're talking, big name prospects like that, might as well just add 2 more of them and go get Soto at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, like we had talked about, of course, the Dodgers, you're interested in a Luis Castillo type. But for that price, somebody mentioned it's a seller's market. There's all these other teams that are going to be in the mix for the playoffs. A team like the Mariners just says, screw it. We're going to do it. We're going to throw in, a lot of teams would look at a prospect at the level of the guy that they gave up and said, sorry, he's untouchable. And the Mariners were willing to include him, willing to include another top 100 prospect. None of these lists are perfect, but that's a steep price. And yet, I haven't seen a lot of people crushing the Mariners for it because it's like, hey, you need pitching. Luis Castillo, again, another year of team control. Go get him. Go see what you can do with Luis Castillo and make a run at it. So good for them. You mentioned bullpen and hitters. I mean, with Trayce Thompson continuing to hit, Edwin Rios starting a rehab assignment, do you still think Jake Lamb, 2 more hits tonight? Like, do you still think a hitter is on the list of needs for the Dodgers?
I mean, like I said earlier, like Soto is obviously in a class of his own. So if you're getting him, then yeah, you need a hitter because that would be a huge impact bat. But outside of him, I mean, maybe a JD Martinez, maybe a Brandon Drury could help you a little bit. But outside of that, like you're pretty much adding guys who are on the same level as you already had. We put out a video the other day talking Garrett Cooper. Neither of us are too high on him. So to me, it's really Soto or bust. Like maybe a JD Martinez, maybe a Josh Bell. But the thing is with those guys, it's kind of the same way I feel about Castillo. It would have to not be an overpay for it to make sense. Yeah. Like I'm not going to go overpay for JD Martinez. So if you could get him for cheap, then great. But if not, I think they're fine on the position player side. Trayce has been doing great, and we don't know exactly how long he's going to be. Like we don't expect him to have a 900 OPS all year. But at the same time, if he's in a platoon role, you got Chris Taylor coming back. You got the big 3 at the top of your lineup who are just mashing all 3 of them. And then you got the janitor cleaning it up.
There we go. See, you just slipped that nicely in. I like it. You were skeptical. It's coming. It's growing on you. I can tell.
I did that just for you, but the way guys are hitting, it's not like they're struggling to put up runs right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love a guy in the comments, by the way, that gets mad because I've said the word "we" referring to the Dodgers multiple times. So I'm just going to throw it out there. If you don't like that, this is a show called DodgerHeads, and we work for a website called Dodger Blue. We don't work for the Dodgers, but we're fans, and I'm going to say we. So apologies to Lou, our friend Lou. We appreciate you joining us. But forewarning, there's going to be lots of we's around. That's been my life story. A bullpen, I mean, we talk on one hand about, hey, look at the guys hitting tonight. We don't need help on the offense. Bullpen-wise, we know Andrew Friedman doesn't like to pay for bullpen. We know there's a lot of starting pitchers coming back, even Andrew Heaney, who pitched well in his first start. I mean, is there a part of you that says maybe the Dodgers end up just staying put? It's sort of Soto or bust at the trade deadline?
I think they'll get a reliever. It's just a matter of, will it be a high leverage reliever or just like kind of an under the radar that they basically get for free? I definitely think they'll get an arm just to have those reinforcements, to have an extra arm down the stretch. But like you said, Friedman himself has said that he hates trading for relievers. We've seen in the past, like literally the only two trades that have come back to bite the Dodgers are they traded they traded for Josh Fields and they gave up Yordan Alvarez, and they traded for Tony Watson and they gave up O'Neal Cruz. Those were two relievers who were borderline high leverage guys. Like they're solid, not great. Like if the Dodgers picked up Josh Fields right now, I don't think anyone would be like beyond stoked about it or anything. Yeah. But he was fine. But that's the risk you run with relievers. Like, yeah, you're probably going to give up a relatively unknown prospect, but if he turns out to be the next Yordan Alvarez, you're not going to be too happy about that. So I understand where Friedman is coming from, but I still think they'll pick up someone just because we always see, like, even if it's like the way they pick up Phil Bickford as like a waiver claim or an under the radar type move last year, like stuff like that, just to get an arm in there. But hey, to me, if you're not getting Soto, then your focus should be on the bullpen.
Yeah. Ryan, if you make an Eric Gagne comment, I'm just warning you, it's perpetually going to be appreciated by me. Bring back Eric Gagne from retirement. I'm on board with that. I do want to mention, by the way, real quick, Will Smith was the Sportsnet LA post-game interview by Kirsten Watson, so I think that pretty much settles that one for player of the game. So we'll just leave that without that one there. Still undetermined whether or not she referred to him as the janitor at any point in the interview. I'll have to wait till I get some audio on that one. Yeah, we got to get working on that. We'll get IT on that. Send some intel over to her. Let's talk about Ohtani. Let's talk about the John Morosi tweet, because this is the tweet that's probably going to be dominating Dodger talk, and rightfully so. Again, if you missed it, this was 27 minutes ago. John Morosi tweets, quote, "While a Shohei Ohtani trade is viewed as unlikely, sources say the Dodgers have tried to engage the Angels regarding the possibility of acquiring the superstar. Many in the industry are skeptical that Ohtani would be dealt to the Angels' geographic rival." You and I have talked at length. As I said, we've got a video coming out tomorrow where we talked briefly about this. We don't think the Angels are going to trade him to the Dodgers, and we don't think the Angels are going to trade him at all. Is there anything in this Morosi tweet that makes you pause and second guess that sort of assumption that we've been operating under?
Not really. If anything, it kind of confirms it. Like, you expect the Dodgers to make the call. Like when the report comes out earlier today that the Angels are listening on Ohtani, probably not going to deal him, but they're at least listening. Friedman's making that call. Friedman has been in love with Ohtani pretty much since he was in high school. The Dodgers tried to sign him as a high schooler. Then they tried to sign him when he came over. He chose the Angels. So we know the Dodgers love Ohtani. We're sitting here talking about trade needs. Ohtani would fill all of them at once, pretty much. Yeah. And obviously he would cost a lot, but like you said, we got a video coming out tomorrow where we talk Ohtani or Soto, who we prefer. I will say, sneak peek, me and Jeff were on opposite sides of the argument, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I'm not surprised to hear the Dodgers made a call, and I'm also not surprised to hear that the Angels probably aren't gonna, entertain offers from the Dodgers. That's just kind of how Artie Moreno rolls. I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know what the Dodgers ever did to him other than just being well run and really good, which his own organization has struggled with, but yeah, I tweeted today about it, and a lot of people hopped in the responses saying Artie Moreno will never trade Ohtani to the Dodgers, and I get it, but at the end of the day, you're still making that call.
Yeah, and it's the thing that makes no sense to me is it's a completely different league. Like, they're in the same city. Who cares? Like, it's not the Giants trading with the Dodgers. There's rumors that Carlos Rodon might be available, and would the Giants trade him to the Dodgers? Those types of things. Would the Rockies trade? Would the Diamondbacks trade Mantiply to the Dodgers? Those types of things. The Angels and Dodgers, to me, thing is hilarious. I mean, one of the tension points was the infamous trade that never happened, where the Dodgers were going to send Jock Peterson, Ross Stripling, and I believe Andy Pages to the Angels in exchange for Luis Rengifo and Taylor Ward, I believe were the guys that would have come back in that trade. And this was going on basically at the same time of the Mookie Betts trade, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if my timing is off on that. But basically what happened is the Angels and Dodgers had some form of an agreement. Artie Moreno got impatient and basically gave some sort of arbitrary deadline, like we need to agree to this deal by this time. It didn't happen, so they pulled the trade. Everybody laughs now because Pages is a top 50 to 100 prospect, depending on where you look. Of course, Taylor Ward has panned out, and so maybe at first for a couple of years it looked like that would have been an absolutely disastrous deal from the Dodgers side. And yet, as things move on, it's starting to look pretty good.
Ward's cooled off a little, though. I will say that. So it's maybe flipping back. It would have been in the Angels' favor.
Yeah. THB says, I'm clearly not from SoCal. I don't know if that's like a rivalry thing. I grew up and went to school all the way, half of my life in Southern California. So definitely from Southern California. But I mean, am I missing something? Is there a rivalry between the Dodgers and Angels that do you feel like this is a rivalry, Daniel? They don't play each other. They're in completely different leagues. They've never played meaningful series against each other. I get that their geographic location is near each other, but I mean, they're not. I care more about beating the Padres than I do about beating the Angels.
What I've come to realize is there's probably about 10 teams that view the Dodgers as their primary rivals, whereas, us as Dodger fans, it's really pretty much the Giants. You could throw the Astros and Padres are probably on that next tier. And then after that, no, don't really have any animosity towards anyone else. Maybe the Cardinals a little bit, but that's, going back 10 years now. So, and we just beat them in the wild card game. But, I could see why the Angels, like I said earlier, the Dodgers have had a lot more success and they're both in Southern California. So in that sense, the Angels, maybe it comes from jealousy there, but there's been no World Series meeting between them. Obviously they're in separate leagues, so there's never been a postseason series between them. So it's just kind of like a friendly, location type of deal, but there's no real rivalry there. Nothing that, in my opinion, should stop you from making a deal that could change your franchise for the next 10 years. So to me, I don't get it, but maybe, I don't know, maybe Angel fans feel differently.
Yeah. People in the chat saying, the fans always hate each other. I don't know.
I don't think an owner or GM really takes the fans' opinion into account, especially when you're making a move of that magnitude. Obviously, if you're going to trade Ohtani, your fans are not going to be happy about it, no matter who you trade him to. So, I mean, if the Dodgers are offering you the best package, which remains to be seen, but to me, if you are going to trade Ohtani, you just take the best package, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Again, as Daniel has hinted at, we've got a video coming out tomorrow, me, Matt, and Daniel debating Soto versus Ohtani. So hopefully, I don't know. If they're going to get traded to the Dodgers, there could be a trade in the next 12 hours. I'd be perfectly fine with that. But if not, hopefully
we'll record another video if that happens.
Absolutely. Hey, a quick programming announcement real quick, sort of an exciting thing that I know Daniel and I are excited about is Monday night, we're actually going to do a live watch party online. So follow Dodger Blue 1958 on Twitter for details. Basically what this is we've partnered with an organization called Playback. If you follow Lakers Nation, you follow Trevor Lane. They've done a few of these on the Lakers side. But basically what it allows people to do is to join a private room in which the game is being displayed for everybody at the exact same time, at the exact same speed. And so none of us are, 10 seconds ahead or 10 seconds behind of one another. But basically you'll get to watch the game with Daniel and I. We'll have some commentary as things go along. We'll watch the game. We'll take breaks. But for the entirety of Monday's series opener against the Giants, Daniel and I will be there. Again, this one, because it's the first time we're doing it, we're going to get some kinks out of the way as we go. But if you would like to be a part of that, we do have room for a limited number of people. Make sure you are following Dodger Blue 1958 on Twitter, because what we'll do is we'll put out the announcement probably on Monday, and basically anybody who replies to that will get a direct message with the link. It's not something we can post openly on Twitter, at least not yet. And so stay tuned for that. Again, Monday night, I believe that's a 6:45 first pitch in San Francisco. Yeah, 6:45 in San Francisco. So please, please, please make sure you're following the Twitter account. If you don't see anything by Monday afternoon, you can DM Daniel or DM myself, and we'll get you the link for that, Matt Moreno as well. But just some exciting news there. If you've got questions, throw them in the chat. We can do our best to answer. One other thing, just a couple other notes here. There was a quote on the pregame from Dave Roberts that I wanted to just get to. Max Muncy has been sort of a sticking point for Dodger fans. 0 for 1 tonight. 1 for 4 tonight. Sort of the same thing. I think he had 2 strikeouts in the game, did get the hit. I was surprised. You and I posted a video today about Chris Taylor and Chris Taylor's return and who does this end up hurting. And I posted on Twitter, I was surprised at how anti-Max Muncy the comments in there were. Everybody seemed to be pro Bellinger, leave Bellinger in there, take Muncy out. Well, Dave Roberts today said Max Muncy is still going to be an everyday player when Chris Taylor returns. He did admit that the runway is going to get shorter as the season goes on, but I guess take that any direction you want. Were you surprised with the pro Bellinger, anti Muncy when given a choice between those two sort of rhetoric in the comments on that video? Were you surprised that Dave Roberts says he's still an everyday player? Were you surprised that he's finally admitting that maybe the runway is getting shorter? What stands out to you about that whole group?
I'll start by saying I wasn't surprised by Dave Roberts making those comments because Dave Roberts always says stuff like that and fans get mad every single time. At the end of the day, there's no reason for him to really say anything different publicly. Like at the end of the day, you're going to pencil him into the lineup or you're not. You don't need to you don't need to bash him in the media or whatever the case may be. So I understand why Roberts was supporting him there. The fan reaction, a little surprised. To me, Muncy and Bellinger are pretty much on the same level, but I guess the difference is, and I get from the fans' perspective on this, like Bellinger is still really good defensively. He in the last week or so, he's hit 2 big home runs, so fans tend to remember that. So in that sense, I get that. Like, Cody's value in center field is a lot more than Muncy's value at third base or second base or wherever he's playing. So in that sense, I get it. But for me, I still think, you're going to keep trotting him out there. Maybe not every single day. Maybe you don't play him against lefties, but I think there's a righty on the mound. You're gonna put him in the lineup just because the upside that he presents is higher than a lot of other guys. So no, he hasn't been good this year. But if he can catch lightning in a bottle for a month or even a couple weeks and have a good postseason, that's something that you want to happen still at this point. You're not completely giving up on him yet. There's no reason to. I think this is different than last year in the sense that the Dodgers are 12 games up right now. Like the next 2 months of games are going to be relatively meaningless. Like, yes, you want to have the best record overall so you can have home field throughout the postseason. But the way that the Dodgers are playing, like they're winning every single day, pretty much despite what Muncy has been doing. So it's not like they need to take him out of the lineup, go to drastic measures just because you're in a close, division race or you need to win all these games. Like they're winning regardless. So to me, I think it makes sense. I think as the postseason gets closer, then you kind of start to reevaluate. But we're sitting here on July 29th. A lot can change between now and October 1st. Like that's 2 months of baseball to be played. And who knows? Anything could happen. Guys could get hot. Other guys could start slumping. Injuries could happen. Like Muncy's a guy who, you're going to want to have at least as an option for you. Like you can't just send him down like I see a lot of people suggesting and just lose him completely,
Yeah. Yeah, and I responded to a comment with on the video earlier today with basically the same thing. Like if I told the people that are anti-Muncy, for example, if I said, hey, there's a 25% chance that if you bat Muncy every single day for the rest of the season that he'll figure something out. There's a 25% chance of that, which I don't think is an outrageous odds because we're talking about Bellinger. We're talking about a guy who has a long track record of being bad. Muncy does not have a long track record of being bad. Obviously, he's got the elbow injury, which is serious. But to me, if I gave you a 25% chance, then you would trot him out there every single day because, A, they continue to win. As you pointed out, they have a 12-game lead in the division. They have the best record in baseball, despite the fact that he's hitting, let's see what his batting average, 160 after he goes 1 for 4 and raises that bad boy today.
Raised it.
So you take your chances. Let me ask you this question, Daniel. Offensively, we know there's a big gap defensively between the two. Do you have more confidence in Bellinger or Muncy offensively right now?
Honestly, Muncy's numbers are a little worse I'd say his OPS is a little lower, but I have more faith in Muncie just because he at least takes a good at bat. He works walks, like, the eye is there with him. So honestly, if I would take Muncie, offensively. Overall, I take Bellinger just because the gap is wider defensively.
Yeah.
But I still have more faith in Muncie at the plate than Bellinger.
Yeah, I mean, Bellinger's 83 weighted runs created plus, Muncie 81, so we're not talking about a huge gap between the two. Bellinger's got 80 points higher in the slugging category. Muncie's about 40 points higher in the on-base category. Bellinger 50 points higher in the batting average. But yeah, it just came to me because I will say this about Bellinger. And look, if you've watched the show, if you've followed me, I'm the last guy that's going to be like, hey, Cody, put together a couple nice at-bats. Here we go. That's not me, okay? But I will say it does seem like he's at least seeing the ball. Like today, he fouled off a couple pitches. There was a pitch below the zone that he swung at with 2 strikes, and he was able to pull it down the line to keep the at-bat alive. Muncie, meanwhile, is just swinging and missing on hanging breaking balls. And so, look, the gap between the two is not large. I don't like my chances with either of them up in a big spot. And honestly, Chris Taylor is not a whole lot better than either of the two of them. We haven't seen him in a while, so I don't know if that helps his cause in my mind or hurts his cause in my mind. But it's an interesting thing. At the very least, I think it's close. And as we've said, Bellinger is one of the best defensive players in all of baseball. So I understand why fans give him the edge over Muncie there. Although Muncie, as I pointed out, has been way more competent at third base than I think any of us really expected him to be. He's been pretty good over there. We mentioned this earlier. We're circling back to this. Craig Kimbrell, Dave Roberts, I said I'd be curious what he says after the game. Here was the quote from Bill Plunkett. Quote, he's our closer, but certainly performance matters, especially at the back end of the game. No one knows that more than Craig. He's got to continue to work on some things to be more efficient and be more effective. That's just facts. So as you predicted, he's our closer, but performance matters, especially at the back end of the game. So is he your closer or not closer? Because if performance matters, that seems to be a problem for Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, he's saying we're getting closer to the point where he's not our closer, but we're not there yet. I guess that's kind of what I take from that quote. But, yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with him. Performance certainly does matter, especially, at the back end of the game, exactly like you said.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some questions from folks. So if you're in the comments, we got about 10 more minutes. We'll take some questions from you all. We appreciate you joining us, as always. Worth noting, some people have pointed out, Miguel Vargas, walk-off home run for AAA tonight, an absolute bomb to left center field. Johnny DeLuca, a walk-off home run for AA as well, so a couple walk-offs for the Dodgers. But, I mean, Miguel Vargas, people are joking, the Fabian Ardaya piece. We had Fabian Ardaya from The Athletic on earlier in the week, by the way, and if you missed that interview, it was great. But there was a quote from Miguel Vargas in there that just absolutely made me smile. And it was a story his manager told, and many of you, I'm sure, either saw my tweet or read the article. But basically what happened is it's an 0-1 count. Vargas is at the plate. He sees the guy from first base take off, so he takes a strike. And the manager comes up to him afterwards and says, hey, just so you know, like, just because the guy's stealing, you don't have to take strike 2. And Vargas basically looks at him and says, nah, this guy didn't have anything that could strike me out, so we're good. Like, I can take the pitch. He's not striking me out anyways. And I'm just like, geez Louise. The confidence that this guy has, and it's backed up by performance. Everywhere he has gone, he ends up hitting. And so there you go. Justin's got a question here, something we touched on earlier. Does missing out on Castillo mean Friedman is all in for Soto or Ohtani? There were reports that a lot of teams weren't going to make moves outside of those two. So I should say Soto, because whether Ohtani is available remains very unlikely, I would say. But there were rumors that nothing was really going to happen until there were some things settled on Soto. Of course, the Mariners maybe saw themselves as out of the Soto sweepstakes, or maybe thought we just need to make this move because we need pitching more. I don't know. But do you think the Dodgers do you think the decision on Soto impacted the Dodgers here, inability to get Castillo? What do you think?
I just don't think they were trying to overpay for a starter, seeing as that's not a true need. And hey, if you're trading 3 of your top 5 prospects or whatever, that's what the Mariners did. I don't know if it, how equivalent that is to the Dodgers system, but if you're trading, a number of those guys, that definitely takes you out on someone like Soto. So if you think you have a chance at Soto, then you're not going to send that offer for Castillo. So in that sense, yes. But I don't necessarily want to say it's an all-in situation. Like, I don't think Friedman is approaching this deadline as we have to get Soto to win a World Series. Like, I don't look at it that way. I think this team has all the talent, they need to win it all. I also think there's a lot of luck involved with the postseason. Like, you could have a murderer's row and still lose a short postseason series. So I don't think it's necessarily an all-in sense. I think, as is normally the case, the Dodgers, they're going to be opportunistic. They're going to be involved in every big-name player that's out there. Yeah. But if they feel like they're overpaying, they're probably not going to make the deal.
Yeah. I've thrown out my idea for a Soto package. I can't remember if I've quoted this exact one to you, but the offer that I would make for Juan Soto, and, of course, you can't get picky, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I would tell you tell me if you would do this deal. I would tell the Nationals, you can choose either Dustin May or Bobby Miller. You can have one. You can't have both. You can either have Diego Cartaya or Gavin Lux. You can have one, but you can't have both. So you get one of each of those two categories. And then basically, outside of Cartaya and Miller, the Dodgers have 5 more prospects. I would essentially say pick 3. So pick 3 out of Pepio, Bush, Vargas, Pages, and who am I missing?
Landon Knack?
No, not Knack. Maybe it's just 6. Gosh. Anyways,
it is a top 6 in the Dodgers farm system.
Okay, so like 3, maybe it's 3 of those 4, and a couple other guys that are sort of on the back end of the 40-man roster, like an Outman, a Vivas, a Eddys Leonard, Michael Grove, those types of players. If that was the cost, so 5 really high-end guys. If it were me, I'd like to keep Vargas from that group. If I could keep Vargas of the 6 and basically, ship the others out, I would do it. Would you do that trade for Juan Soto?
Yeah, and for me, it would be all the prospects. Like I would be keeping May and Lux. I think that makes sense for both sides too. Like I think the Nats are a rebuilding team. They're not going to be competing for at least 2 or 3 years. So if you're looking at May and Lux, they're going to be free agents in 3 or 4 years. So it doesn't really fit their timeline. I would assume they would want prospects that they could control for the next 6, 7, 8 years. Guys like Bobby Miller and Cartaya, who are probably still even a year or 2 away. I would assume that's what the Nats would want, and I would assume that's what the Dodgers would want. Because if you're the Dodgers and you're trading for a Soto, ideally you want to keep your major league club intact and then just add Soto, and then you get that much better as opposed to subtracting a key guy like Lux, who's been phenomenal, who's been an everyday guy in your lineup. And I know he's not on Soto's level, of course. And I think at the end of the day, if the Nats said we're demanding Gavin Lux and that allows you to keep some of the other top prospects, I still think you do it. But to me, if I had my choice, I would include more of the prospect guys who haven't reached the majors yet, as opposed to the May and Lux who could help in this pennant race, who could help next year's pennant race, etc.
So if it was Miller, Cartaya, Pages, Bush, and Pepio, you're good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's it for me. And again, okay, if you want like Michael Grove and that sweetens the deal and we're good to go. And look,
Andre Jackson, have at it.
Andre Jackson, Mitch White, even Mitch White. You want some Mitch White action in your life?
Well, that's a guy that might be the Nats ace right there if they got him. I'll put him after JoJo Gray. He could be their number 2.
Yeah, I loved, by the way, don't get your hopes up if you're reading Jim Bowden articles on The Athletic, by the way. The trade proposal that he had was the most unrealistic trade proposal you will ever see in the history of your life, because not only was it light on the Dodgers side, I'll have to pull up, I got it in a text message today, and it was just like an absolute joke. But not only did it have the Dodgers receiving back an unbelievable, not only did the Dodgers sending an unbelievably light package, but it was also the Dodgers receiving Keibert Ruiz back in the trade. And it's like, so what? Like, it was like a light package, and you get the package he proposed would not get Soto on its own, let alone with Keibert Ruiz, who is a top 100 prospect, coming back to them in the other way. So I don't know if you saw that trade, but to me it was an absolute. Oh, here we go. It was Gavin Lux, Diego Cartaya, Andy Pages, and Bobby Miller for Juan Soto and Keibert Ruiz. That was the Jim Bowden trade.
Somehow, multiple teams had employed that guy as their GM, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess as I look on it, it's 4 guys, but if you're including Lux, Cartaya, and Bobby Miller, that's basically 3 of the top 4 assets that I would argue that the Dodgers have, plus Pages, who, depending on who you ask, again, he's a top 50 prospect in some places, and he's outside the top 100 in others. But, man, if you could keep Dustin May, if you could keep Pepio, if you could keep Miguel Vargas, and still get Juan Soto, the Lux piece would hurt, and especially, as you said, this year.
you get back Keibert Ruiz too, which
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what would the Dodgers do with Keibert Ruiz. Like
Austin Barnes would be headed to he would be headed to Washington. Austin
they
Barnes
just
would be carrying the
extended
bags.
Austin Barnes, so
It's great.
he's sticking around.
It's great. Sorry, Austin. We appreciate you. You're gonna be a Washington National for the next 2.5 years. Thank you for your service time here.
But yeah, that's a Jim Bowden classic right there.
Yeah. Michael says that we're crazy. This guy Soto isn't that good. He's not worth $450 million. He's a $250 hitter at best. That was Michael's.
If you want to talk about
hits.
crazy, it's looking at Juan Soto's career and using batting average to judge how good a player he's been.
7 wins above replacement, I believe he was worth last season as a 22-year-old. And
his career OPS is about 960, 970. So and he's 23 years old. His best years are ahead of him.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, yeah, we'll leave that one at that. I love this. Soto is only 23, has a small sample size compared to the greats. It makes a good media frenzy, though. I'm not giving up 300 Lux for 250 Soto at this point.
Is that the same person, or is that a different person?
Different. This is unless we've got multiple accounts here.
I guess batting average is still a thing for a lot of
Well, Matt Moreno gives batting average a shout out on our video tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, I guess the small sample size, 2,400 plate appearances for Juan Soto in 5 years before he turns 24 years old. I guess that's too small of a sample size. He's also a 291 career hitter with an OPS of almost 1,000 for his career.
And let me just say, typically, like in the history of baseball, most of the time, guys play their best baseball after 23. Like it's very rare that a guy has played his best baseball before he turns 23.
Yeah. So there you go. 290 career hitter, almost 1,000 OPS in 2,500 plate appearances. So apologies to the people that are just looking at his 2022 stat line. They must have missed the 313 average he put up last year, the 350 average he put up the year before, 282 as a 20-year-old, and how about 292 batting average with a 923 OPS as a 19-year-old in 500 plate appearances. So there you go. Apologies to the Juan Soto haters there.
Yeah, look, if you're saying giving up your top 6 prospects is too much, like I totally see that side of the argument. Like I get that, but we don't need to downplay like how good of a player like Juan Soto is. Like, oh, he's not worth it. Like he would absolutely be worth it.
Yeah, Nicholas, if this is a real quote that somebody gave to you, wake up, DodgerHeads is on, then shout out to your significant other, whoever that is, because we love that. We appreciate you joining us. Again, if you've missed this announcement a few minutes ago, Monday night, Daniel and I are going to be on a new partner that we have, Playback, and we're going to be doing a live virtual watch party. So all of us will get into a room. We'll be able to talk. We'll be able to chat. We'll be able to watch the game in real time all together. So make sure you block off your schedule for that 6:45 Giants-Dodgers game. The details will be on Twitter. So make sure you're following Dodger Blue 1958 on Monday. We'll post a message that basically says, hey, if you are interested, we've got limited spots. Comment below. Send us a message. We will DM you the link for that. It's going to be a ton of fun. As I said, Daniel and I doing it. It'll be our first time, so we'll need a little bit of patience as we get used to the system, but it should be a fun night there. I think that'll do it. 5-4 for the Dodgers tonight. We talked about all of it. Will Smith, 2-run home run. Trayce Thompson, 2-run home run. Julio Urías, 7 innings, just 4 base runners allowed, 2 earned runs, sort of getting the Coors Field monkey off his back a little bit. The Dodgers had multiple opportunities to extend this. Bases loaded, nobody out. They scored just 1 run in that inning. They have 4 consecutive innings after that. With runners in scoring position, they score no runs. 1 for 12 on the game. 13 runners left on base. But it felt like it was going to be okay. 5-2 lead heading into the 9th with good old Craig Kimbrell on the mound. He gives up 2 runs, strands the tying run in scoring position, strands the go-ahead run on first base. But the Dodgers win. 12-game lead in the division, best winning percentage in all of baseball. So it's a good night to be a Dodger. The Dodgers win 5-4 over the Rockies. Hey, everybody, we appreciate you joining us as always. This has been DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. Make sure you check out DodgerBlue.com for all sorts of post-game coverage. Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. And hey, if you're checking this out via podcast, please subscribe. Please rate and review. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, ring the notification bell. As we said, please spread the word. We got tons of content, including, as I said, a Soto versus Ohtani debate tomorrow. Who should the Dodgers be interested in? Daniel said it. We disagreed on who they should be after. I might have given myself away here in the last 10 minutes of this video, but you'll have to watch out. We appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time. Go Dodgers.